Marcus Chen had seen enough war to last 3 lifetimes. The Afghan mountains still haunted his dreams, and the shrapnel in his left leg served as a constant reminder of the IED that ended his military career 5 years ago. Now, at 34, he found peace in the vast wilderness of Montana, where the only sounds were wind through pine trees and the steady breathing of his companion, Rex. Rex wasn't just any dog. The German Shepherd had served alongside Marcus for 2 tours, detecting explosives and saving countless lives. When Marcus was medically discharged, Rex came with him. The military brass called it a compassionate placement, but Marcus knew better. Rex had PTSD too, flinching at sudden noises and scanning every tree line with the same hypervigilance that kept them both alive overseas. Their morning routine never varied. Marcus would wake at 500, make coffee strong enough to strip paint, and gear up for their daily patrol of the surrounding forest. It wasn't official business anymore, but old habits died hard. The local sheriff appreciated having an extra set of experienced eyes watching the remote areas where drug runners and poachers sometimes operated. The October morning was crisp. With frost painting the meadow grass silver, Marcus adjusted his pack, checking that his emergency kit, radio, and the .45 he wasn't supposed to carry were all secure. Rex waited patiently by the door, his tactical harness snug across his chest. Even in retirement, they both felt naked without their gear. "Ready for another exciting day of absolutely nothing happening?" Marcus asked, scratching behind Rex's ears. The dog's tail wagged once, a controlled response that spoke to years of discipline. They set out along their usual route, following deer trails that wound between towering pines and across creek beds that sang with mountain runoff. Marcus's leg ached in the cold, but he pushed through it. Physical therapy had taught him that motion was medicine, and besides, Rex needed the exercise as much as he did. 3 hours into their patrol, Rex suddenly froze. His ears snapped forward and his entire body went rigid in the alert posture Marcus knew meant business. Every instinct from their combat days kicked in simultaneously. "What is it, boy?" Marcus whispered, automatically reaching for his sidearm while scanning the forest ahead. Rex's nose twitched, processing scents that human senses couldn't detect. He took 3 careful steps forward, then sat down and looked back at Marcus with those intelligent brown eyes. It was the signal for explosive device, but that couldn't be right. They were in the middle of nowhere, 20 miles from the nearest road. Marcus approached carefully, following proper clearance protocols even though they were technically unnecessary. Rex had never given a false positive in all their years together. If the dog said there was something dangerous ahead, Marcus believed him completely. Through a gap in the trees, Marcus spotted something that made his blood run cold. A helicopter sat in a small clearing, its rotors still and silent. But this wasn't any aircraft he recognized from his military service. The hull was pristine black metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The design was sleek and angular, with curves that suggested advanced aerodynamics beyond current technology. "Son of a bitch," Marcus muttered, pulling out his binoculars for a closer look. The helicopter had no visible markings, no registration numbers, no national insignia. Its landing gear was extended, but the craft sat perfectly level despite the uneven forest floor. Stranger still, there was no damage visible anywhere on the hull, no scorch marks from a hard landing, no bullet holes, no signs of mechanical failure. Rex whined softly, still locked in his alert position. Marcus had seen that behavior only once before, during a night raid outside Kandahar when they'd discovered a weapons cache that included some very exotic ordnance. The dog wasn't just detecting explosives. He was detecting something that scared him. Marcus activated his radio and tried raising the sheriff's department, but got only static. His cell phone showed no signal, which wasn't unusual in these mountains, but the timing felt ominous. He took photographs with his camera, burning through an entire memory card as he documented the mysterious aircraft from every possible angle. Moving closer required crossing 40 yards of open ground, something every fiber of his training told him not to do, but Marcus had to know what they were dealing with. This could be a crashed military prototype, a drug runner's aircraft, or something else entirely. Whatever it was, it didn't belong in his forest. He signaled Rex to heel and began a careful approach, using trees for cover and pausing every few steps to scan for threats. The helicopter grew larger and more imposing as they got closer. Up close, Marcus could see that the metal surface wasn't painted black, but seemed to be naturally that color, with a texture unlike anything he'd encountered. The cockpit windows were tinted so dark they might as well have been solid metal. Marcus couldn't see inside, couldn't tell if there were occupants or bodies. The passenger compartment had similar windows, giving no clue about what might be waiting inside. Rex's behavior grew more agitated as they approached. The dog kept looking up at the sky as if expecting something to descend from above. His tail was tucked low and he pressed close to Marcus's leg in a way that communicated pure animal fear. "Easy, boy," Marcus whispered, though his own heart was pounding. "We'll just take a quick look and get out of here." The helicopter's main door was on the side facing away from their approach vector. Marcus would have to walk around the aircraft to reach it, exposing himself completely, but he'd come this far and his curiosity was stronger than his caution. As they rounded the tail rotor, Marcus noticed something that made his skin crawl. The ground beneath the helicopter showed no signs of impact or disturbance. The grass wasn't even bent. It was as if the aircraft had been gently placed there by some invisible hand. The passenger door was slightly ajar, hanging open just wide enough to reveal darkness within. No sound came from inside, no movement, no signs of life. But Rex's alert had been for explosives, not people, which meant whatever was in there was still dangerous. Marcus reached for the door handle, then hesitated. Once he opened that door, there would be no going back. Whatever was inside would become his problem, his responsibility. But he was a soldier, even retired. And soldiers didn't walk away from mysteries that could threaten civilians. He pulled the door open and peered inside, squinting as his eyes adjusted to the darkness. What he saw made him stumble backward, his mind struggling to process the impossible. The interior of the helicopter defied every law of physics Marcus thought he understood. From outside, the aircraft appeared to be a standard size for a military transport, maybe 12 feet long in the passenger compartment. But looking inside, the space stretched impossibly far, like peering into a cathedral made of gleaming metal and soft blue light. Marcus blinked hard, certain his eyes were playing tricks on him. He'd had concussions before, knew how head trauma could mess with perception, but Rex was reacting to whatever was in there too. And dogs didn't have imagination-induced hallucinations. The seats inside weren't fabric or leather, but something that looked like liquid mercury frozen in the shape of furniture. They seemed to pulse gently with their own internal light. Banks of controls lined the walls, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. They seemed to shift and writhe when Marcus wasn't focusing on them, like words written in smoke. But what made his hands shake as he gripped the doorframe wasn't the impossible technology. It was the bodies. 3 figures sat in the mercury seats, perfectly preserved but clearly dead. They looked human at first glance, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, too thin, with limbs that bent at angles that made Marcus's joints ache in sympathy. Their skin was pale gray, almost translucent, showing dark veins beneath like road maps of some alien circulatory system. Their faces were the worst part, almost human but stretched and elongated, with eyes too large and mouths too small. They wore form-fitting suits made of the same black material as the helicopter's hull, and those suits were torn and burned, showing wounds that had bled something that wasn't quite red. Marcus forced himself to breathe steadily, falling back on his military training. Assess the situation. Gather intelligence. Don't panic. The figures had been dead for some time, their bodies showing the early stages of decomposition despite the strange preservation of their features. Rex whined again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was the sound he made when he'd found something important during their explosive detection work. Marcus followed the dog's gaze to a metallic case lying open on the floor between the seats. Inside the case, nestled in foam that seemed to absorb light, were 3 objects that made Marcus's breath catch. They looked like weapons, but unlike any firearms he'd ever seen, sleek and organic, more grown than manufactured, with grips that seemed designed for hands slightly larger than human. Each one pulsed with the same blue light as the seats, as if they were alive. But nestled among the alien weapons was something that made Marcus's blood run cold. A standard-issue M4 carbine, U.S. Army specification, with scorched and melted parts that suggested it had been exposed to temperatures hot enough to soften steel. The serial number was still partially visible, and Marcus found himself memorizing it automatically. "What the hell happened here?" he whispered. Rex's ears perked up suddenly, swiveling toward the forest behind them. Marcus spun around, hand moving to his pistol, but saw nothing except trees and shadows. Still, after years of trusting the dog's senses, he knew they weren't alone anymore. The sound came a moment later. Helicopter rotors in the distance, growing closer. Not the mechanical chop of normal aircraft, but something smoother, almost musical. Marcus grabbed Rex's harness and pulled him away from the mysterious helicopter, seeking cover in the dense underbrush. 3 aircraft appeared over the tree line, moving in perfect formation. They were similar to the crashed helicopter, but larger, more aggressive-looking, with weapon pods visible beneath their hulls. They circled the clearing once before landing in a triangle formation around the crashed craft. Figures emerged from the new arrivals, and Marcus felt his world tilt on its axis. They were human, wearing military fatigues, but their movements were wrong. Too precise, too coordinated, like a drill team that had practiced for years. They carried weapons that looked like hybrids between the alien devices and human firearms. A woman approached the crashed helicopter, and Marcus could see she wore the rank insignia of a colonel, but no unit patches or name tags. She was tall and blonde, with ice-blue eyes that seemed to glow in the forest shadows. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly across the clearing. Retrieval team, begin evidence collection. Science team, prepare the specimens for transport. Security team, establish a perimeter and sweep for witnesses. Marcus felt his heart stop. Witnesses. They were looking for people like him. The woman continued giving orders, but her words became increasingly strange. She spoke in perfectly accented English, but occasionally slipped into something else, something that sounded like the wind through metal pipes. The other soldiers responded to these alien words as naturally as they did to English commands. Rex pressed closer to Marcus, trembling. The dog had been fearless in combat, had charged into buildings filled with Taliban fighters without hesitation. But whatever these people were, they terrified him on an instinctual level. Marcus watched as the soldiers began loading the alien bodies onto stretchers. They handled the corpses with practiced efficiency, suggesting this wasn't their first recovery operation. One of them held up the case with the weapons, examining the contents before sealing it in a larger container marked with symbols that weren't in any human language. The woman turned suddenly, looking directly at the tree line where Marcus was hiding. For a terrifying moment, he thought she'd spotted them, but her gaze swept past without stopping. Still, he could swear she was smiling. Scan complete, one of the soldiers reported. No witnesses detected in the immediate area. Expand the search radius, the woman ordered. Use the enhanced detection protocols. If anyone saw the crash, they need to be debriefed. The way she said debriefed made Marcus's skin crawl. He'd been in intelligence work long enough to know a euphemism when he heard one. 2 of the soldiers pulled out devices that looked like metal briefcases with antenna arrays. They opened them and began sweeping the forest, moving in Marcus's direction. Green lights pulsed across the devices' surfaces, and Marcus realized they were being hunted by technology far beyond anything in the standard military arsenal. He signaled Rex to follow and began crawling backward, deeper into the underbrush. Every movement had to be calculated to avoid breaking branches or rustling leaves. His legs screamed in protest, but adrenaline kept him moving. The soldiers were systematic, professional, but they were searching for normal humans using normal human tactics. Marcus had spent years learning to evade exactly this kind of pursuit in terrain just like this. He knew every deer trail, every rock formation, every hiding spot within 5 miles. But as they retreated, Marcus caught sight of something that made his blood freeze. One of the soldiers had removed his helmet, revealing a face that was almost human, but not quite. The same elongated features as the dead aliens, but less pronounced. As if someone had taken human and alien genetics and mixed them together. The woman noticed Marcus's attention and turned directly toward his hiding spot. This time there was no mistake. She was looking right at him, her blue eyes seeming to glow brighter in the shadows. "Contact," she called out, her voice carrying an edge of something that wasn't quite human satisfaction. "We have a witness." Marcus grabbed Rex and ran, crashing through the underbrush as the forest erupted in shouts behind him. The hunt was on, and he was the prey. Marcus ran like his life depended on it, because he was increasingly certain it did. Rex bounded alongside him, the dog's training kicking in as they moved through the forest with the fluid coordination of a combat team. Behind them, he could hear the pursuit beginning. But these weren't normal search patterns. The sounds were too organized, too efficient. His mind raced as fast as his feet. What he'd seen in that helicopter changed everything he thought he knew about the world. Alien technology, hybrid soldiers, and some kind of military operation that operated outside any chain of command he recognized. The M4 rifle in that case meant humans had fought these things before, and probably lost. The terrain was on his side at least. Marcus knew these mountains like his own backyard, having spent 5 years exploring every ridge and valley. He led Rex down a steep slope toward Copper Creek, hoping the water would mask their scent and confuse any tracking devices. The creek was running high from recent rains, the water ice-cold and fast-moving. Marcus didn't hesitate, plunging in up to his knees and feeling the current try to sweep his legs out from under him. Rex followed without question, the dog's trust in his handler absolute even in the face of obvious danger. They moved downstream for half a mile, staying in the water and using the creek bed's natural cover. Marcus's leg was screaming now, the old shrapnel wounds flaring with each step on the uneven rocks. But he pushed through the pain. Rex was struggling, too, his breathing heavy, but the dog kept pace without complaint. When they reached the old beaver dam, Marcus finally allowed them to climb back onto dry land. He needed to think, needed to plan their next move. The nearest road was 12 miles away, and his truck was parked at the trailhead where he'd started this morning's patrol. Assuming these hybrid soldiers hadn't already found it, Marcus pulled out his radio and tried again to raise the sheriff's department. Still nothing but static. His cell phone was equally useless, showing no signal despite the fact that they'd climbed to higher ground. Whatever technology these people were using, it was jamming normal communications. Rex suddenly tensed, his ears pricking forward. A moment later, Marcus heard it too, the whisper-quiet sound of those alien helicopters passing overhead. They were conducting a grid search, moving systematically across the forest canopy, but something was wrong with the search pattern. It was too perfect, too mathematical, as if the pilots knew exactly where to look. Then Marcus realized the horrible truth. The scanning devices he'd seen weren't just looking for heat signatures or movement. They were tracking something else, something specific to him. Maybe his metal dental fillings, maybe the shrapnel in his leg, or maybe something even more sophisticated. Whatever it was, staying hidden wasn't going to be enough. He needed to change the game. Marcus led Rex to a rocky outcropping that offered good defensive positions and clear sight lines in multiple directions. If they were going to be found anyway, he wanted to choose the ground for the confrontation. The position reminded him of a fire base they'd held outside Jalalabad, where good fields of fire had made the difference between victory and annihilation. From his pack, Marcus pulled out everything that might be useful. Emergency flares, a small amount of C4 explosive he wasn't supposed to have, and the modified radio he'd rigged to broadcast on emergency frequencies. If he was going down, he was going to make sure someone knew what was happening in these mountains. The first helicopter appeared over the ridge 10 minutes later, moving slowly as its sensors swept the area. Marcus could see weapon pods mounted under its hull, and the way it moved suggested the pilot was experienced in combat operations. This wasn't a search and rescue mission, it was a hunter-killer patrol. Marcus keyed his modified radio and began broadcasting on every emergency frequency he knew. Military, civilian, aviation, marine band, anything that might reach human ears. This is Marcus Chen, former Staff Sergeant, U.S. Army, broadcasting emergency traffic. I am currently being pursued by unknown aircraft of foreign design in the Gallatin National Forest coordinates. He rattled off their position, knowing the transmission was probably being monitored, but hoping someone somewhere would hear and respond. The helicopter immediately altered course, heading directly for their position. Marcus grabbed Rex and moved to a new firing position, but he knew it was probably hopeless. His .45 pistol wasn't going to do much against an armed aircraft. But as the helicopter approached, something unexpected happened. Another aircraft appeared from the south, moving fast and low. This one Marcus recognized immediately, an Apache attack helicopter in full U.S. Army markings, bristling with missiles and cannon pods. The Apache pilot's voice crackled over Marcus's radio. Unknown aircraft, this is Viper 6-7. You are operating in restricted U.S. airspace. Identify yourself and land immediately. The alien helicopter's response was to open fire, The weapons it used weren't bullets or missiles, but beams of coherent energy that lit up the forest like lightning. The Apache pilot was ready for trouble, though, and jinked hard to avoid the attack. The energy beam struck trees behind the aircraft, and Marcus watched in horror as ancient pines simply disintegrated, turned to ash in seconds. "Viper 6-7 is taking fire," the pilot shouted over the radio, "engaging hostile aircraft with weapons that are not, repeat not, of terrestrial origin." The Apache's cannon opened up, sending streams of 30mm rounds toward the alien helicopter. But instead of penetrating the hull, the bullets seemed to splash off an invisible barrier surrounding the aircraft. Some kind of energy shield, Marcus realized, technology that was decades ahead of anything in the human arsenal. But the Apache pilot was good. Really good. Instead of continuing a hopeless gun battle, he fired a Hellfire missile at the forest below the alien helicopter. The missile's warhead detonated among the trees, sending a shockwave through the air and debris flying in all directions. The alien helicopter's shield flickered and died, apparently overloaded by the proximity blast. The Apache pilot immediately pressed his advantage, raking the now vulnerable aircraft with cannon fire. The alien helicopter shuddered, leaked something that glowed blue, and made an emergency landing in a clearing half a mile away. 2 more alien helicopters appeared over the ridge, moving to assist their damaged comrade. But they weren't alone. Marcus counted 6 more Apache gunships rising from valleys he hadn't even known were occupied, along with what looked like a squadron of F-22 Raptors screaming in from the east. The battle that followed was unlike anything Marcus had ever witnessed. Energy weapons lanced through the sky, meeting missile trails and cannon fire in a deadly light show that lit up the mountains. The alien aircraft were faster and more maneuverable than anything in the human inventory, but they were outnumbered and apparently hadn't expected serious resistance. Rex cowered against Marcus's side as the sound of battle echoed off the mountain walls. Explosions lit the forest, and the smell of ozone and burning trees filled the air. This wasn't a skirmish. It was a full-scale engagement between technologies, separated by what might be centuries of development. But the humans were winning. Whatever advantages the alien aircraft possessed, they weren't enough to overcome superior numbers and tactics honed by decades of combat experience. One by one, the mysterious helicopters were forced down or destroyed outright. As the gunfire died away, Marcus heard the distinctive sound of transport helicopters approaching from multiple directions. These were definitely human aircraft, Blackhawks and Chinooks moving in standard formation. The cavalry had arrived, but Marcus wasn't sure if he should feel relieved or more worried than before. The first Blackhawk to land disgorged a squad of soldiers in full combat gear, but with unit patches Marcus didn't recognize. Their leader was a woman with captain's bars, but she moved with the confidence of someone used to higher command. "Staff Sergeant Chen?" she called out, somehow knowing exactly where to find him. Marcus stood slowly, his hands visible and empty. Rex stayed close, sensing the tension in the air. "That's me," Marcus replied. "Though I'm retired." The captain smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Not anymore, Sergeant, not anymore." The captain introduced herself as Rachel Torres, but the patch on her uniform read something Marcus had never seen before. Terrestrial Defense Initiative. The soldiers with her carried standard-issue M4 rifles, but Marcus noticed modifications he didn't recognize and equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. "We need to debrief you immediately," Torres said, her tone professional but urgent. "What you witnessed today has implications for national security that go far beyond what you might imagine." Marcus looked around at the destruction in the forest, at the alien aircraft burning in distant clearings, at the reality that his quiet retirement had just been shattered beyond repair. "I think I'm starting to get the picture." "How long has this been going on?" "Longer than we'd like to admit," Torres replied. "But today represents an escalation we've been dreading. They've never been this aggressive before, never operated this far inside our territory. We need to understand what changed." Rex was still on high alert, his nose working constantly as he processed scents that probably included things no Earth dog had ever encountered before. Torres noticed the dog's behavior and knelt down, extending her hand for him to sniff. German Shepherd explosive detection specialist, she observed. His alerting is what led you to the crash site, wasn't it? Rex doesn't give false positives, Marcus confirmed. If he said there were explosives in that helicopter, there were explosives. Torres exchanged glances with one of her soldiers, a tech specialist who was monitoring some kind of handheld scanner. That's what we were afraid of. The aircraft you found wasn't just a transport. It was carrying weapons-grade antimatter in containment pods. If those pods had been breached, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Marcus had enough physics knowledge to understand that an antimatter explosion would have turned several square miles of Montana into a crater. How much are we talking about? Enough to level a city, Torres said grimly. The fact that they were transporting it through populated areas suggests they weren't planning to take it home. A medic checked Marcus over while Torres continued the briefing. His leg was badly aggravated from the chase, but nothing was broken. Rex submitted to his own examination, though the vet who looked him over seemed puzzled by some of the readings on her instruments. Your dog is showing elevated electromagnetic activity in his nervous system, the vet reported. It's not harmful, but it's consistent with exposure to exotic radiation. He might have absorbed some kind of enhancement from proximity to their technology. Marcus looked down at Rex, who was sitting alertly beside him but seemed somehow more focused than usual, as if he was processing information on multiple levels simultaneously. Enhanced how? We're not sure yet. But several K9 units that have encountered these beings have shown increased sensory capabilities afterward. Enhanced hearing, improved threat detection, almost like their technology has a symbiotic effect on Earth animals. Torres led them to a command post that had been rapidly established in a clearing, complete with communication arrays and tactical displays that showed the positions of all friendly and hostile forces in the area. Marcus was impressed by the speed and efficiency of the deployment, but also troubled by how prepared they seemed for this exact scenario. This isn't the first time, is it? He asked. No, Torres admitted. We've been tracking incursions for 18 months. Small scale at first, just reconnaissance flights and isolated landings, but the pattern has been escalating. Longer missions, larger forces, more aggressive behavior. She activated a holographic display that showed a map of North America dotted with red indicators. There were dozens of them, concentrated along the Canadian border and in remote wilderness areas. Each dot represents a confirmed contact. What you found today was different, though. This was the first time we've recovered intact technology and biological samples. Marcus studied the map, his military mind automatically analyzing the pattern. They're not random. These locations are all near strategic infrastructure or natural resources. Power plants, military bases, rare earth mineral deposits. Exactly. We think they're conducting a systematic survey, preparing for something much larger. Today's mission might have been the last reconnaissance before a full-scale operation. The implications were staggering. Marcus had stumbled into what amounted to an alien invasion in its preliminary stages, and the fact that there was already a military unit equipped to deal with it suggested the government had been preparing for this possibility for years. How long have you known? He asked. Torres hesitated, clearly weighing how much classified information to reveal. The first confirmed contact was in 1947, but that incident was successfully contained and covered up. We've had sporadic encounters ever since, usually individual craft or small groups. The Terrestrial Defense Initiative was founded in 1962, after what we now know was a probe landing near Malmstrom Air Force Base. She showed him classified footage of various encounters over the decades. Some were clearly the same beings he'd seen in the crashed helicopter, while others showed different alien species entirely. The technology varied as well, from the sleek aircraft he'd witnessed to more exotic craft that seemed to bend space around themselves. We're not dealing with a single species or even a single star system, Torres explained. Earth appears to be located at some kind of galactic crossroads, making us a target for multiple civilizations with varying agendas. Rex suddenly stood up, his ears pricked toward the forest. A moment later, Marcus heard it too. Movement in the underbrush, something large approaching their position. The soldiers immediately went to high alert, weapons ready, but Torres held up a hand for them to wait. It's probably one of theirs, she said quietly. The hybrid soldiers often survive aircraft destruction and attempt to complete their missions on foot. What emerged from the tree line wasn't quite what Marcus expected. The figure was clearly one of the elongated beings he'd seen before. But this one was wearing damaged human military fatigues, over what looked like some kind of environmental suit. Its face was a disturbing blend of human and alien features, and when it spoke, its voice carried the same metallic undertone he'd heard from the woman at the crash site. "I request asylum," it said in carefully pronounced English. "I wish to defect." The soldiers tensed, but Torres stepped forward with the confidence of someone who'd handled similar situations before. "You're injured," she observed, noting the blue fluid seeping from tears in the being's suit. "Yes, my aircraft was damaged in your attack. My mission parameters have changed." The being swayed slightly, clearly struggling with both language and physical trauma. Torres signaled for the medic to approach cautiously. "What was your mission?" "Population assessment for harvesting operations. But I have learned that my people's information about humanity is incorrect." The being's large eyes fixed on Marcus with startling intensity. "Your species shows greater resistance capabilities than predicted. This complicates our strategic assumptions." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "Harvesting operations?" The being turned its attention to him, and Marcus could see intelligence there along with something that might have been regret. "Your planet has been designated for resource extraction. The harvesting was to begin with, biological specimens for workforce enhancement, but today's engagement demonstrates that the resistance coefficient must be recalculated." Torres moved closer to Marcus, her voice low. "This is why we need you, Sergeant. Your discovery today may have just bought humanity time to prepare for something we never could have handled alone, but we're going to need every experienced soldier we can get." Marcus looked down at Rex, who was watching the alien being with fascination rather than fear. The dog had always been a good judge of character, and his calm acceptance of their unusual visitor was oddly reassuring. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Torres smiled for the first time since they'd met, and this time it did reach her eyes. "Help us save the world, Sergeant. Think you're up for one more mission?" 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in an underground facility that officially didn't exist, watching human engineers reverse engineer alien technology with the kind of methodical determination that had built the atomic bomb in 4 years. The Cheyenne Mountain complex had been expanded far beyond its original Cold War specifications, and the new sections hummed with energy that made his teeth ache. Rex had adapted to their new reality with typical canine pragmatism, though the enhancements the alien exposure had given him were becoming more apparent daily. The dog could now detect electromagnetic signatures from over a mile away, and his hearing had become so acute that Marcus had to use hand signals more often than voice commands to avoid overwhelming him. The defecting alien, who had chosen the name David for his human interactions, had proven to be an intelligence goldmine. His species, the Zephyrians, were part of a larger galactic confederation that viewed Earth as a resource-rich world inhabited by primitives. The harvesting operation was scheduled to begin in 6 months, with an advanced fleet that would make the reconnaissance forces look like scouts. "The translation software is finally working properly," David reported, his English improving daily as human linguists worked with him to bridge the communication gap. "I can now provide technical specifications for their defensive systems." Marcus reviewed the tactical briefs that had become his daily reading. The enemy force they were facing was staggering in scope. 12 motherships, each carrying 1,000 smaller craft, supported by orbital weapons platforms that could glass entire continents from space. Against this, humanity could field perhaps 200 aircraft equipped with hybrid technology, and maybe 50,000 ground troops who had been briefed on what they were really fighting. "It's not enough," Marcus told Torres during their evening briefing. "Even with the tech upgrades, we're looking at fighting a modern military with muskets and determination." Torres pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's defensive preparations. "That's where you're wrong, Sergeant. We're not fighting them with their own playbook. We're fighting them like humans." The plan was audacious in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. Rather than try to match alien technology ship for ship, humanity was preparing an asymmetric warfare campaign that would make Afghanistan look like a training exercise. The aliens expected a conventional resistance focused on protecting major population centers. Instead, they would find themselves fighting a species that had turned warfare into an art form over thousands of years of constant conflict. Every major city was being secretly evacuated, their populations dispersed to underground facilities and remote locations that could sustain human civilization, even if the surface was temporarily lost. Meanwhile, those cities were being turned into elaborate traps, honeycombed with tunnels and filled with weapons that would turn urban fighting into a nightmare for occupying forces. The aliens have superior technology, but they've never fought a species that specializes in killing each other, Torres explained. They're expecting us to line up our armies and fight them head to head. Instead, they're going to find that every human civilian is a potential guerrilla fighter. Every building is a potential fortress, and every piece of terrain comes with a 1,000-year history of tactical innovation. Marcus was assigned to train rapid response teams, small units that could deploy quickly to alien landing sites and cause maximum damage before disappearing back into the population. Rex had become the prototype for a new generation of enhanced military working dogs. His abilities studied and eventually replicated in other animals through controlled exposure to alien technology. The moral implications of deliberately exposing Earth animals to alien radiation concerned many of the scientists, but the results were undeniably effective. Dogs developed enhanced sensory capabilities, horses became stronger and faster, and even domestic cats showed improved reflexes and intelligence. It was as if the alien technology awakened dormant potential in Earth's biosphere. We're not just fighting for our species, David explained during one of his briefings. Earth's biological diversity is unprecedented in the galaxy. Most worlds that develop intelligent life do so at the expense of other species. Your planet maintains thousands of species with near-sapient intelligence levels. This makes you valuable as more than just a resource extraction site. The revelation that Earth was essentially a biological treasure house added another layer to the conflict. The aliens weren't just planning to strip mine the planet for raw materials. They wanted to preserve and study the unique evolutionary path that had produced humanity's relationship with other Earth species. Marcus found himself in the strange position of training soldiers to fight an enemy that viewed them as specimens to be preserved rather than threats to be eliminated. It changed the psychological dynamic of the conflict in ways that conventional military doctrine hadn't prepared for. They'll try to capture rather than kill, he told his trainees. That gives us advantages, but it also means they'll use non-lethal weapons and containment systems. We need to be prepared for incapacitation tactics that won't trigger our normal combat reflexes. The underground training facilities echoed with the sounds of humans, learning to fight beings who could manipulate gravity, project energy shields, and move through space-time in ways that violated Einstein's theories. But for every alien advantage, human ingenuity found a counter. Energy shields could be overloaded by sufficient conventional firepower applied rapidly. Gravity manipulation required enormous energy expenditure that created detectable signatures. Even their advanced sensors had blind spots that human stealth technology could exploit. Rex had become something of a celebrity among the military working dog community. His enhanced abilities were being studied by researchers trying to understand how alien technology interfaced with Earth biology, and the results were promising for human enhancement as well. The symbiotic relationship appears to be intentional, Dr. Sarah Kim explained during a science briefing. Their technology is designed to enhance rather than dominate biological systems. It suggests their own evolution followed a path of technological symbiosis rather than replacement. The implications were staggering. If humanity could fully understand and replicate the symbiotic enhancement process, the species that emerged from this conflict would be fundamentally different from the one that entered it. Stronger, faster, more intelligent, but still recognizably human. Marcus watched Rex demonstrate his enhanced abilities for a group of visiting generals. The dog's performance a perfect blend of natural canine instincts and alien-enhanced capabilities. The sight filled him with both pride and unease. They were changing their species to fight an enemy that wanted to preserve them as specimens, and the irony wasn't lost on him. Contact! The alarm echoed through the facility as detection networks around the globe registered the first signs of the invasion fleet's arrival. Massive gravitational distortions appeared at the edge of the solar system, heralding the approach of ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever imagined. Torres found Marcus in the kennel facility, where he'd been saying what might be goodbye to Rex. "It's time, Sergeant. The advanced scouts are already in system. Full contact estimated in 72 hours. Marcus stood up, feeling the weight of his gear and the presence of Rex beside him. Around the facility, thousands of humans were making final preparations for a war that would determine whether their species remained free or became the galaxy's most interesting zoo exhibit. "Well, boy," Marcus said, scratching Rex's enhanced ears one last time before they headed to the surface. "Ready to show the universe why you don't mess with Earth?" Rex's tail wagged once, a controlled response that spoke to years of discipline and absolute trust. Together they walked toward a war that would redefine what it meant to be human. The first alien mothership materialized over Denver at exactly 0347 hours, its massive bulk blocking out the stars and casting shadows across the Rocky Mountains. Marcus watched from his position 20 miles away as the city's trap was sprung. Buildings that appeared abandoned, suddenly blazing with hidden weapon, emplacements that opened fire on the descending craft. The ship's energy shields flared, brilliant blue as conventional rockets and artillery struck them, but the human forces weren't trying to penetrate those defenses. They were providing cover for the real attack. Enhanced military working dogs like Rex, carrying specially designed packs loaded with alien hybrid explosives directly into the ship's landing zones. "Phase 1 is go." Torres's voice crackled over the tactical network. "All dog teams execute your runs." Marcus released Rex from his position, watching as the German Shepherd bounded across the urban battlefield with impossible speed and agility. The alien enhancement had turned him into something that was still recognizably a dog, but moved like liquid lightning, dodging energy beams and gravitational distortions that would have torn a normal animal apart. Similar scenes were playing out in 11 other cities around the globe. The aliens had expected resistance, but they'd planned for human resistance patterns based on their observations of Earth's historical conflicts. They hadn't anticipated that humanity's greatest weapon would be the same: loyalty and intelligence that had made dogs humanity's partners for 30,000 years. Rex reached the first landing craft as it touched down, alien troops pouring out in perfect formation. But their energy weapons were calibrated for human-sized targets, and a low-profile attacker moving at enhanced speed presented a targeting problem their technology wasn't designed to solve. The explosion that followed wasn't nuclear, but it was close. The hybrid explosive contained elements of both human engineering and alien antimatter confinement technology, creating a reaction that punched through energy shields like they were made of paper. The landing craft lifted off the ground for a moment before settling back down as a twisted ruin of exotic metals. Dog Team 6, successful detonation, Marcus reported. Rex is clear and moving to secondary target. All across the battlefield, enhanced dogs were proving that evolution's most successful partnership could adapt to any challenge. The aliens tried to adjust their tactics, but every countermeasure they deployed met with new innovations from their four-legged opponents. But the real surprise came when the alien ground troops reached the city center and found themselves facing not fleeing civilians, but an entire population that had been preparing for this moment for months. Every human in Denver had been trained in basic combat techniques, and many carried weapons that blended human design principles with captured alien technology. Marcus watched through Rex's enhanced vision as ordinary citizens emerged from hidden positions to attack alien soldiers with weapons that fired crystallized energy bursts. A postal worker used a modified mail truck as a mobile weapons platform. A group of school teachers had turned their building into a fortress that channeled attacking forces into killing zones. "This is impossible." David's voice came over the comm system from his position as human liaison with alien defectors. "Their tactical algorithms cannot process this level of civilian involvement. They are experiencing what you might call cultural shock." The aliens had conquered dozens of worlds, but they'd never encountered a species where the entire population could transition to military operations within hours. Most civilizations had clear distinctions between soldiers and civilians, but humanity had spent millennia blurring those lines whenever necessary. The Denver mothership tried to retreat, but humanity had one more surprise waiting. As the massive vessel climbed toward space, it passed through what appeared to be empty sky but was actually a network of orbital mines that had been deployed over the past 3 weeks. Each mine was a hybrid of human nuclear technology and alien antimatter containment, creating explosions that lit up the night sky like a second sunrise. Similar victories were being reported from every battlefront. Seattle's naval engagement saw enhanced dolphins carrying torpedo mines directly against alien submarines. In the Amazon, modified army ants formed biological circuits that interfered with alien electronics. Over the Sahara, enhanced eagles guided missile strikes against high-altitude targets with precision that no human pilot could match. But Marcus knew the real test was yet to come. The first wave had been reconnaissance and quick-strike forces. The main fleet was still approaching, and when it arrived, humanity would face numbers that made the current battle look like a skirmish. Rex returned from his successful mission, his enhanced metabolism already processing the radiation exposure from proximity to alien weaponry. The dog showed no signs of fatigue despite having just completed what should have been a suicidal mission, and his tactical harness was already being loaded with explosives for the next phase. "Status report," Torres requested as she approached Marcus's position. 11 motherships down, minimal human casualties, and we've captured intact technology from 7 different alien species, Marcus replied. But this was just their advance guard. The real fleet will be ready for our tactics. Torres nodded grimly. That's why we're moving to Phase 2. If they want to fight a war of attrition, we'll show them what a species that invented that concept can do. Phase 2 involved something no alien species had ever encountered: the complete militarization of Earth's biosphere. Every animal that could be enhanced was being brought into the conflict, from bacteria modified to attack alien electronics to whales equipped with sonic weapons that could disable spacecraft from underwater. But the most important element was the human population itself. The aliens had expected to face perhaps 1 million trained soldiers. Instead, they found themselves confronting a planet where every human was a potential combatant. Every city was a fortress, and every piece of technology was a weapon waiting to be deployed. Marcus received an intelligence update that changed everything. "Sergeant, we're getting communications intercepts from the main fleet. They're calling for reinforcements. Apparently, Earth has been reclassified from a resource extraction operation to a military threat requiring extreme measures." The implications were chilling. A resource extraction operation would preserve the planet and most of its population. A military threat would be dealt with by converting the entire surface to molten glass from orbit. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked. 48 hours before the reinforcement fleet arrives. After that, they won't be interested in taking prisoners or preserving specimens. Marcus looked down at Rex, who was watching him with those intelligent brown eyes that now glowed with a faint blue light from the alien enhancements. The dog had given everything to this fight, as had every enhanced animal on the planet. But if they couldn't find a way to stop the main fleet, all of their sacrifices would be meaningless. "Then we better make sure they never get the chance," Marcus said, beginning to formulate a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane. "Torres, I need you to get me a direct line to every enhanced animal on the planet, and see if David can put us in contact with any other species that might have issues with the Zephyrian Confederation." "What are you thinking, Sergeant?" Marcus smiled. And for the first time since this war began, it was the expression of genuine confidence rather than desperate hope. "I'm thinking it's time to remind the galaxy why humans have the most dangerous friends in the universe." Marcus's plan required something that had never been attempted in galactic history: the coordination of an entire planet's biosphere as a single military unit. While human engineers worked frantically to establish quantum communication links with every enhanced animal on Earth, David reached out to his contacts in the galactic community to find allies humanity hadn't known existed. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species across 3 star systems had been quietly watching Earth's resistance with growing amazement, and many harbored their own grievances against the Zephyrian Confederation's expansion policies. Within hours, Marcus found himself coordinating not just with enhanced Earth animals, but with rebel fleets from a dozen different worlds. "The Altarian Collective wishes to provide orbital support," David translated as messages poured in through quantum channels. "The Vegan Republic offers their stealth technology. The Free Worlds Alliance is dispatching a battle fleet that should arrive within 36 hours. But it was the message from Earth's own enhanced animals that gave Marcus the most hope. Rex's enhanced nervous system had become a communication hub, linking him to enhanced dogs, cats, horses, dolphins, eagles, and thousands of other species in a biological network that spanned the globe. Through Rex's connection, Marcus could sense the collective will of Earth's enhanced creatures. They understood what was at stake. and they were ready to do something that would change the course of galactic history. Fight as a unified planetary consciousness. The Zephyrian main fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 12 massive motherships accompanied by orbital bombardment platforms designed to sterilize planets from space. Their commander, Admiral Korath, opened communications immediately, expecting to negotiate humanity's surrender. Primitive species of the third planet. Korath's voice echoed across every communication channel on Earth. You have demonstrated unexpected resistance capabilities, but you cannot prevail against our full military might. Surrender now, and we will preserve your population for relocation to suitable reservation worlds. Marcus keyed the global response channel, speaking not just for humanity, but for every enhanced creature on the planet. Admiral Korath, this is Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen speaking for the United Earth Defense Coalition. We appreciate your generous offer, but we must respectfully decline. Earth is not for sale. Korath's response was predictable. Then you have chosen extinction. Begin orbital bombardment. Eliminate all military installations and major population centers. The bombardment platforms opened fire, sending beams of coherent energy toward Earth's surface that could have carved continents. But instead of striking cities, the beams hit what appeared to be empty space and dissipated harmlessly. Cloaking technology provided by the Vegan Republic had hidden orbital defense stations built around captured alien antimatter weapons. Impossible. Korath's voice carried a note of confusion that Marcus found deeply satisfying. That's just the beginning, Marcus replied. Earth execute Operation Symbiosis. What happened next had never been seen in galactic warfare. Every enhanced animal on the planet acted simultaneously, their actions coordinated through the biological network that connected them all. Enhanced dolphins launched themselves from hidden underwater positions, carrying fusion warheads toward the alien fleet's underwater support vessels. Modified eagles guided swarms of hybrid missiles through the planet's atmosphere with precision that no artificial guidance system could match. But the real shock came when Earth's orbital space began to fill with creatures that shouldn't have been able to survive in vacuum. Enhanced whales, their massive bodies protected by energy fields generated through alien biotechnology, moved through space like living starships. Each one carried weapons that blended Earth biology with alien engineering in ways that created capabilities neither species could achieve alone. The Zephyrian fleet found itself under attack from directions they hadn't considered possible. Their tactical computers couldn't process the idea of biological organisms functioning as spacecraft, and their weapon systems weren't calibrated for targets that combined alien technology with Earth evolution. Admiral, one of Korath's subordinates reported, his voice tight with disbelief. We're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. It appears the entire planet has been converted into a weapons platform. Marcus smiled as he watched the tactical display. Earth's enhanced animals weren't just fighting individually. They were functioning as a collective organism, with intelligence distributed across millions of enhanced nervous systems. Rex's role as a communication hub had evolved into something approaching telepathic coordination, allowing tactical adjustments to be made at the speed of thought. The alien reinforcement fleets that Korath had called for arrived to find the Zephyrian task force in full retreat, pursued by creatures that moved through space as easily as they moved through Earth's oceans and skies. But they also found something else. The Free Worlds Alliance battle fleet, positioning itself between Earth and any further alien aggression. The galactic political situation changed overnight. Earth's successful defense against a major Confederation fleet had demonstrated that biological enhancement could create military capabilities that purely technological civilizations couldn't counter. Species across the galaxy began requesting access to Earth's enhancement technologies, offering trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Marcus stood in the same forest clearing where this had all begun, watching Rex play with a pack of enhanced wolves that had joined them for a post-war celebration. The dog was still recognizably the same animal that had served with him in Afghanistan, but his enhanced capabilities had made him something new, something that represented the future of Earth's relationship with the galaxy. Status report, Sergeant? Torres asked, joining him at the edge of the clearing. Mission accomplished, Marcus replied. Earth is secure. We've established diplomatic relations with 15 different species, and our enhancement technology is being studied by the galaxy's best scientists. Rex is enjoying retirement again, though I suspect it won't last long. Torres laughed. The Altarian Collective wants to establish a joint training program. Apparently, their military could benefit from learning human tactical doctrine. They're particularly interested in our use of biological partners in combat operations. Marcus looked up at the night sky, where alien starships now served as Earth's orbital defense network, rather than a threat to be fought. You know what the strangest part is? We never would have developed these capabilities if they hadn't attacked us. They created their own worst enemy by forcing us to enhance our most dangerous characteristic. Which is what? Marcus scratched Rex behind the ears, earning a contented sigh from the enhanced dog. Our ability to turn any other species into our best friends. They thought they were facing humans. Instead, they ended up fighting Earth itself. The sound of approaching aircraft drew their attention skyward, where a mixed formation of human and alien craft was conducting joint training exercises. Earth's enhanced animals had taken to space operations with the same adaptability they'd shown throughout their evolutionary history, and many were already serving aboard ships crewed by multiple species. David approached from the direction of the temporary diplomatic compound, his elongated features showing what Marcus had learned to recognize as Zephyrian satisfaction. The Confederation Council has formally recognized Earth as a sovereign world with full military alliance status. They're also requesting assistance with several other worlds that are experiencing what they term biological resistance movements. Let me guess, Marcus said. They want us to help them negotiate with species they've been trying to conquer? Exactly. It appears that your success has inspired biological enhancement movements across the galaxy. The age of purely technological civilizations may be ending. Marcus considered the implications as Rex wandered over to investigate a group of enhanced ravens that were discussing something in their own complex language. The dog's enhanced intelligence allowed him to participate in cross-species communications in ways that would have been impossible before the alien contact. Torres put together a team for diplomatic missions. It looks like Earth is about to become the galaxy's expert on biological enhancement and interspecies cooperation. As the sun set over the Montana mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and red, Marcus reflected on how far they'd all come from that morning when he'd just been a retired veteran taking his dog for a walk. They'd saved their planet, but more importantly, they'd changed what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of other intelligent species. Rex barked once, a sound that now carried harmonics that resonated with the enhanced nervous systems of creatures across the planet. It was a call to adventure, a reminder that their greatest missions were still ahead of them. Marcus smiled and shouldered his pack, feeling the familiar weight of gear and responsibility. Come on, boy! Time to go show the galaxy what humans and their friends can accomplish when we work together. As they walked toward the landing pad where their new starship waited, Marcus realized that retirement would have to wait a little longer. The universe was a big place, and it was full of species that could benefit from learning what Earth had discovered, that the Esigai